Good evening and welcome. Tonight we'll be going over the history and geography of Kenya. And we're still celebrating Elephant Week, covering different nations that have significant elephant populations. We did Tanzania and South Africa. Now it's time for Kenya. So before we begin, let's listen to Topple's amazing ASMR ears. We put him up to the mic and let him do his magic. And since some of you liked the trunk brushing, I suppose, in the South Africa video, I'll give you a little bit of that too. Enough. Thank you, Topple. Okay, come over here in Ethiopia. Okay, let's talk about Kenya. Kenya is located in eastern Africa along the Indian Ocean right here. It is bordered by Ethiopia up here, by Somalia right here. This is the border with Tanzania. Kind of going through the Lake Victoria there, along with the border of Uganda, cuts through the lake as well. And then it has this little border with South Sudan. And there's this area right here, this little triangle of area is disputed between all three countries here. So I think on this map it looks like it's part of Ethiopia, but that's still to be determined, to be honest. So Kenya's wonderful geography. Let's start on the coast. The Indian Ocean coast here is very hot and humid, but with the cold ocean it makes for some fantastic beach time. It's where you can find the city of Mombasa, which is a very large city, used to be the capital. We'll talk about that during history. And it's a very important shipping city. Lots of shipping going in, going out from all over the world to all over the world. So Mombasa is a very, very important city for Kenya. And you can see it's pretty green along the coast here too. Not so much in the middle. So what's going on in the middle? Well, if you've seen some of my videos on Eastern Africa, you know this is part of the Great Rift Valley. You can see it right here. Great Rift Valley. And right up here, top. Great Rift Valley. It splits in two around this area. The Great Rift Valley is where the African tectonic plate is breaking apart. And that creates some interesting landscapes. It creates lakes like Lake Turkana up here. The Lake Victoria, obviously, you can see right there. There's lots of other smaller lakes around all over Kenya. But there's also this huge plateau area which has lots of savanna grasslands. And of course all of the wonderful African animals, the big five, pretty much all the animals you can think of associated with Africa, you find them here. There's lots and lots and lots of national parks. You can also find volcanoes. The highest point in Kenya is Mount Kenya. You can see right here, the country's named after the mountain. It is the second highest peak in Africa. It's a big one. Of course, the largest is just down here. But it is an extinct volcano. I believe all of Kenya's volcanoes are extinct at this point, or very, very dormant. But there are quite a few mountains going through here. It's part of the Great Rift Valley. You know, things are moving and shaking under the earth. So you get big old volcanoes and mountains and rivers. You can see this is the Tana River flowing down there. That's the biggest river in Kenya. Lots and lots of farming going on along that river. It's an important one. And you can find the capital city of Nairobi right here. And we're going to talk about Nairobi, obviously, and its history, but we'll talk about why the capital isn't Mombasa anymore and why Nairobi's located where it is. Also, like, it seems like when I do geography studies, there's always that one fact that everyone mentions, and it's like apparently extremely important. One of Kenya's is that just outside the city limits of Nairobi is the Nairobi National Park, where you can find all of those wonderful African animals like sweet elephants and zebras and lions and giraffes and all the things, right? Just outside the city limits, so you could be in the savannah surrounded by like wildebeests or whatever, and there will be the skyscrapers of Nairobi in the background. Isn't that something? It's really, really interesting. Also, over here is the Masai Mara National Park, which bleeds into the Serengeti here in Tanzania. It's arguably the most famous park within Kenya, just outside of this city area here. We'll talk about why this is a city area, also in its history. Kisumu right here on the shore of Lake Victoria is a port city. They don't have much of Lake Victoria, but what they do, they make the most of it. Use it for shipping to other places across this massive lake. I know this map doesn't really show you how big this lake is. My goodness, it is huge. It's a gigantic lake. And that's because, the Earth's splitting in half, so that creates holes. Lake Turkana up here is actually located in a desert. This area over here is known as the Chalby Desert. And Lake Turkana is the largest permanent lake located entirely within a desert. And it's also one of the saltiest lakes in the world. It's very alkaline. And we're going to start our history up here, but I want to talk about a few other things real quick. We should mention the rainforest over here. So Kenya is one of those places that has everything. It's got the beaches, the desert, the savanna, the national parks, the mountains, and the rainforest. This is the Kakamega rainforest, and you can find all of those, rainforesty African animals here as well. Kind of going into Uganda, which is very, very densely forested, so it just kind of bleeds over into Kenya. Kenya's things kind of like everything is like overlapping into it. But it's a very special country. I feel like Kenya is one of those places where if you ask someone on the street, name a country in Africa, like a Family Feud question, I feel like Kenya would be up there in the top. It's just very associated with just Africa in general, I think. Let me see, what else? That might have actually been it. So, okay, I gotta say it, because I'm a child of the, technically the 90s, but I became like a preteen in the early 2000s, and there was this Flash song by the Weebs guy who did the Badger Badger song about Kenya. It's been in my head for like 2 weeks now while researching this video. I'll link it down in the description if you haven't seen it, if you're too young for that, which kind of blows my mind, but it was one of those things that we'd watch in like 7th grade in the computer lab when we had free time and sing it nonstop. It's highly inaccurate, by the way. The part about we have the tigers, they don't have tigers in Kenya, but still. Anyway, let's get into history before I get that song back in my head. So like I said, we're starting up near Lake Turkana. This whole Great Rift Valley system has so many early hominid fossils, and the Lake Turkana area is no exception. The most famous hominid fossil would be Turkana Boy, who, what was he? I forget. I want to say he was like an Australopithecine, or maybe a Homo habilis even. I don't know. There's huge differences between those two hominids, but there's also evidence within Kenya of early Homo sapiens as well. So humans have been here since humans have existed. They were hunter-gatherers, as early humans intended to do. Eventually the Cushitic-speaking peoples would have pushed them out. That's people coming from like kind of like this area where my pencil's rubbing. And eventually around 500 CE, the Nilotic people as in the Nile River, so like more up there. And then by the 1st century CE, the Bantu migration arrived in Kenya. Bantu being over there, like Nigeria, Cameroon. Well, not Bantu, but the Bantu people came from that area. And all these cultures mixed together, invented new tribes, new languages, new traditions and customs, what have you. And then at the end of the 1st century CE, the Arabs sailed down the coast and made contact with the people here. And just like the other tribes, they mixed together, introduced new traditions and concepts, and lots of trade. Islam was brought in. Little Islamic dynasties sprang up all along down here. It's called the Swahili Coast. The Swahili language sprang up, which was a combination of Arab words, like lots of like Arab loan words, and the various African languages spoken in this area. So lots of Swahili style culture. This is when Mombasa was built, and Malindi as well was a big trading center in the Arab trading world. And by Arab trading world, because the Arabs traded all over the Indian Ocean, so they had contact with like India and China and pretty much any country that's touched by the Indian Ocean, right? So it was a very big booming industry. So when the Portuguese came up in the 15th century, they were very impressed. Vasco da Gama himself landed in Malindi and was like, whoa, this is wild. Vasco da Gama being the first person to sail around Africa and wind up in India. So he had an adventure, right? So the Portuguese took a lot of interest in the coastline here. They came to Mombasa and built some forts and buildings and really built up the infrastructure in order to profit off of the trade, which people didn't really like. By the 17th century, the Omani Arabs came down and fought them for quite a while until the Portuguese finally quit. And the Omani Arabs controlled the Swahili Coast at that point, with their base down here in Zanzibar. Their big export out of the coastal area here was slaves to send to different parts of the Indian Ocean world. Many slaves being sent out all over the place. Really kind of sad. Meanwhile, let's flash forward to 1888. That's when the British arrive. A few years ago, a lot of the European powers got together in Berlin to figure out who was going to own what part of Africa. And this area was kind of hotly contested between the Germans and the British. And the Germans wound up with the southerny part here, and the British with the northerly part. So this was like the southernmost part of British East Africa. So they arrived and said, let's get to work, and started creating farms, coffee and tea farms being the biggest, which are still big today. If you drink Starbucks coffee, you're drinking beans from Kenya. And they decided to build a huge railroad going from here all the way down to Mombasa. And it took quite a bit of work. Obviously, there was just really nothing here except savanna and jungle and native peoples who did not want a railroad there, and who fought against them. In particular, the Nandi people fought against them. And an interesting story of the Tsavo man-eaters. There's a really good film called The Ghost in the Darkness, which is about this situation in the Tsavo area, which is down here. They were building that railroad, and these two lions kept attacking at night and eating people. And it's a true story, but I'm pretty sure everything, or like most of the movie facts, are made up. But it's a very scary movie with lions in the night. It's really creepy, but it's a good movie. I had no idea it was based on a true story. But yeah, that was during the building of the railroad. Nairobi wound up being built right in the middle of the railroad area, as it was a good like halfway point between the lake and the ocean. And it was high up in the mountains, so it's a lot cooler than it is on the coast. And it sprang up into a very important city for the British and for the people around getting, jobs. And they got jobs on plantations and everything around here too. Hence the capitals moved from Mombasa to Nairobi. The people here really did not like the British, though, like at all. there was all kinds of conflict, including with the Germans in World War I. This was kind of a battleground area, not like war, but attacks. But in 1920, the area officially became a colony. That's when it was renamed to Kenya, after the mountain. If you've seen the movie Out of Africa, it takes place during this time in Kenya. That was one of my mom's favorite movies. I never got why. It's a good movie, but not favorite. But anyway, it's very dated. It's very 80s. But the people kept getting more and more agitated at how these white British settlers had all of the power in every aspect in terms of government, industry, agriculture, economy, so on and so forth. And people were getting less and less. So the native peoples here were getting less and less power. And that all culminated in 1952 during the Mau Mau Rebellion, which was mainly led by the Kikuyu people. And it was a bad time. It was guerrilla warfare. It was strongly fighting against the British, and some really horrible things happened, as you can imagine, during like guerrilla rebellion, revolution kind of things. The British finally managed to put it down by 1959, mainly by capturing and killing all the leaders. So people had no choice. The Kikuyu people really suffered from that. They wound up losing a lot of land rights because the British, I guess, just figured, well, if you're going to do that, then you don't get any land. One of those kind of timeout punishments. But that's when they decided to go from guerrilla warfare to political movement for independence. And it was the right time to do that because it was that time in the world when all the colonies were being let go. So Kenya gained its independence on December 12th, 1963. Their first, I want to say it was president. I think they started off as a republic within the Commonwealth. It's still part of the Commonwealth today. The first president was Jomo Kenyatta, who was a political prisoner during the Mau Mau Rebellion, mainly just for his support of it. And he's also Kikuyu, and he was an interesting character. Not great, very interesting. He did so much for Kenya's economy. It boomed during his presidency to the point where Kenya is the, I guess, the strongest economy, I suppose would be the term, in East Africa, even to this day. But he did a lot of questionable things. Hello, car. So, I should mention real quick, there is a lot of Somalis living here. Like a lot of Somalis. You know, this is Somalia. And when Kenya was a British colony, they had a referendum as to whether or not they wanted to make this part of Somalia, and it passed. But the British just like pretend it never happened, and they never did it. So once Kenya became independent, they were like, "Can we be part of Somalia now?" And Kenya was like, "No, your car's locked, dude, and it's fine." Yeah, it's locked. You locked it. Great job. It's your car's locked. You checked 4 times. The Somali people were very mad about this, and they started technically a war called the Shiftra War. Another very, really, your car's locked. I promise you, it's locked. I promise you, it's locked. It's a scorching hot night. Oh my gosh! So I have my window open, so you'll hear little honks, I guess. Anyway. Yeah, that was pretty bad. The Somalis really got beat down there in some really horrific ways. But one of the more corrupt things that Kenyatta did was he started buying up land and property and giving it to his family and political members of the Kikuyu people. Because remember, like, the Kikuyu lost a lot of territory, like legal property, their land. So he went and bought a bunch of it and profited off of it, which is kind of sus, you know. People weren't happy about that. But more importantly, he did not like any of the opposition parties. A lot of opposition members were assassinated, and excuse me, I had a hiccup. It got to the point where he outlawed them and it became a one-party state. Protesters were very violently quieted, and that's very problematic. So he's one of those political figures that did absolutely wonderful things for the country, but at what cost? You know, the cost of very horrible, horrible things happening. Every election since then, I believe, and except like the snap ones and emergency ones, have been disputed by whoever has lost, and it's turned into a long, convoluted thing. A lot of protests that are put down very, very violently, like huge riots from the protesters, and the police come in. You know, those horrible kinds of situations. But in 2017, that election was being disputed. It was actually, Jomo Kenyatta's son, Uhuru Kenyatta, won the election. His opponent said that there is something very suspicious about that, and the Supreme Court in Kenya actually ruled that there was, and they annulled the results of the election, and they had another, and Kenyatta won that one anyway. The most recent election happened 2 weeks ago after I'm filming, or before I'm filming this. I've been kind of holding off on filming this video to find out what happens, because it takes a couple of weeks for people to figure it out, you know, when it's a close election. They literally just announced the morning that I'm filming this that the opposition leader of William Ruto is the president. He's been declared as of this morning, as of literally like 18 hours ago. I've been waiting for that. But he won by 50.5%, which, holy moly, that's a close election. Uhuru Kenyatta has done his term, so he's done. So it's very much like, you know, who's it going to be? Very tense. All the news sources I read today are like, it's probably going to be disputed and then it'll drag out. But that's where Kenya is today. It's one of those that, like, from the outside, very economically strong. Obviously lovely people, incredible culture, wonderful tourism industry. But the deeper you dig, the more problems you find in the government. It's kind of messy. A lot of racial tension between the different ethnic groups within Kenya. It's definitely one of those that the more you look into what's going on within the country, the more you're like, yikes. But it's nevertheless an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous country. Let's look at some pictures of it in the book here. You can see some, I believe these are Maasai people. Let me move things out of the way. I should have cleared my desk a little better, but anyway, I got some cool breezes in here, and I wanted to take advantage of that. Some beautiful faces there, very sweet kids. Some zebras, beautiful. And let's see, there's some people out enjoying the day. We have a political map of Kenya. Oh yeah, so all these cities are there because of the railroad being built all those days ago. Some archaeological sites here looking for hominid fossils and ancient humans as well. Look at this guy. This is on Lamu Island, which is off the coast of Mombasa. It was a huge Swahili trading settlement, which most of it's still preserved. So he's blowing a traditional horn. It looks like he's in traditional clothes too, very Omani style with the dagger there. This is one of my dreams. I know, like, she's terrified, right? But I would love to go on a little safari and have the animals climb in the car. I would love that. That would be so cool. Look at the beautiful cheetahs. And we have some camels chilling out here, out in the Chalby Desert. Let me slide this over and move Topple. There we go. He's gonna, nope, if I move him there, he's gonna topple. That's why his name's Topple. He falls over all the time. I literally found him this morning, like this, on the edge of my desk, like about to go, and I was like, Topple, stop. The Tana River here, flowing really strong. And here's Lake Turkana. Big beautiful waterfall here, and the physical map. You can really see these mountains on this map, can't you? There's the desert, yeah, and all the rivers. There's a good high up view of the Rift Valley. You can see, yeah, there's some places in Africa you can actually like see the crack. The Kakamega forest over here, a big old thick forest. Here's Mount Kenya. You can see the snow, and there's some glaciers on it still. Probably not for long. They've been receding really fast, but glaciers nonetheless. I mean, it is pretty much on the equator. Like, there's Mount Kenya. This is the equator. So the fact that there's still glaciers on it to this day is pretty remarkable. Some sweet elephants here crossing the river on a rainy, rainy day. This is Mombasa. And this is Kisumu. Yeah, Kisumu. Look at that taxi, how cute. Very old-fashioned. Oh, what a fantastic picture of a giraffe. Straight on, looking into those big old eyelashes. Giraffes are so sweet. Have you ever fed a giraffe? I know I said this a million times in my channel, but I get new people all the time. I basically grew up in a zoo, and I hated feeding the giraffes when I was little because they stick out their tongues, and like you'd be holding like a celery stick or something, and they'd wrap it like around your whole hand to get to the celery. Ugh, I hated it. I was like, what if we don't feed the giraffes? I liked hanging out with the elephants much, much better. Very sadly, here's some ivory that's been poached from some elephants, and obviously it's been caught because they're setting it on fire, so they can't trade it. Still an issue ongoing. This cheetah is going after this little gazelle here. I don't think it has a chance. It looks kind of small. These things are so cool. Geranooks, I think, that stand up on their hind legs like that. And this is a bush baby. Look at that face. That is very aptly named, isn't it? A Nile crocodile with big old chompers. And a big old monitor lizard sniffing the ground with a huge tongue. And these people have caught a bunch of fish. They're laying it out to dry. And some beautiful starfish out along the coast. They're so bright. Flamingos. So, there's a little lake system kind of up here or so. And Lake Nakuru has, Lake Nakuru has one of the highest flamingo populations in the world. Huge flocks, turning the sky pink and everything. And here's a good picture of, like, what I imagine when I think of the African savanna. You know, acacia tree, rains in the distance. Yeah. The Great Migration happening along the Tana River. All the wildebeest going, looking for food. It's the largest migration in the world. Colobus monkey. Very, very bushy. Here's Turkana boy. There's his head. Does it say, like, when he lived? 1.8 million years ago. Wow. And here's a depiction of what life might have looked like back when Turkana boy was running around. Very vivid, I guess. Yeah, it sounds about right. This is Maeve Leakey. She's part of the Leakey family who has been for generations now excavating in the Great Rift Valley in Tanzania and Kenya. She's holding a jaw of somebody. Her daughter is Louise Leakey, and she heads things right now in the Ngorongoro crater in Tanzania. Looking for hominids. Some Kikuyu people doing a dance. Some beautiful costumes on. This is a dhow. This is the kind of ship that the Arab and Omani traders would have arrived in. Also built them along the Swahili Coast. Here's a map of the Swahili Coast. You can see there's Mombasa and Malindi, and there's Lamu up there. I guess it wasn't outside Mombasa, but you know what I mean. Along the coast of Kenya. Here's Vasco da Gama landing in Malindi. He's going like literally, who are you? What are you wearing? Here's what Mombasa would have looked like in 1572, according to the Portuguese. Here's a fort that the Portuguese built, Fort Jesus, which when the Omani Arabs attacked, this was like mainly what they attacked, where the Portuguese fought from. Sultan Said, who was a very important sultan in Zanzibar, he abolished the slave trade. Oh, I should have mentioned him. This is Johann Kroff, which you can't really see him. He's silhouetted there. He was kind of like the German Dr. Livingstone in that he came as a missionary to convert people to Christianity and wound up becoming more famous for his explorations. He was the first European to see Mount Kenya, and he learned Swahili and translated parts of the Bible to Swahili, and apparently absolutely loved his time there, which sounded like a fantastic adventure. So he was an important guy and really helped to perpetuate the spread of Christianity in the area. Not to mention the British would come a couple decades later. So Christianity is the main religion in Kenya today. Here's the Berlin Conference. They're having the scramble for Africa, arguing who should own what without any Africans present. No input whatsoever. Here's what it looks like by 1913, just before World War I breaks out. You can see Kenya's right here. And it's all controlled by the British. You can see the German territory right there. And all the others. Here's the Uganda Railway coming through from Kisumu, all the way down to Mombasa. And there's Nairobi right in the middle. They've got some ivory to sell here and working very hard on a farm. A lot of Kenyans were drafted into the military during both World Wars, and their division was known as the King's African Rifles. They fought a lot of battles. And this is Harry Thuku, who was one of the people at the forefront of the independence movement, but apparently dropped out of it after lots and lots of violence happened, like the rebellion and everything. Here's Kenyatta celebrating independence, and there's a great photo of him. This is Tom Mboya, one of the opposition rulers who was assassinated. And this was the next president, Daniel Arap Moi, with Queen Elizabeth II. Interesting story. Queen Elizabeth, when she was Princess Elizabeth, was on, I believe it was like a little political visit with Prince Philip in Kenya when she found out that her father had passed away and she was now queen. So she had to leave and go back to England to claim the throne. This was after a terrorist attack at a U.S. embassy. I didn't really want to talk about that, but I believe that would be from the Somalis organizations happening up there. People protesting the 2007 election, and people celebrating the new constitution in 2010, which gave some more fair distribution of power throughout the branches. This is Uhuru Kenyatta casting a vote. This is Wangari Maathai, who she had passed away, an environmentalist who really pushed a lot of environmental ideas, mostly planting trees and recycling, all those things. She became a member of the government in the environment section, and she won the Nobel Peace Prize. The National Assembly and the Supreme Court and the flag. Let's see, I think that was pencil that rolled off. That was that sound? No, it wasn't. It's right here. Must have just been another pen. The national flag. Kenya adopted its flag when it gained independence in 1963. The flag includes 3 horizontal bands, black on the top, red in the middle, and green on the bottom, with white borders on either side of the red stripe. The black represents the African majority of Kenya. The red symbolizes the blood Kenyans lost as they fought for independence, and the green stands for the nation's natural wealth. The white bands stand for peace. In the middle of the flag is a shield like the one used by Maasai warriors. It covers 2 crossed swords, like the ones Kenyans once used for hunting and in battle. This lawyer is says showing evidence in a smuggling case. Here is the ivory he was smuggling. Here is Nairobi Museum, the big beautiful skyscrapers, and the map of the city, which you can see. We're going to talk about Kibera in a minute, but there's Nairobi National Park, literally right next to like the airports. So interesting. These guys are working hard on something. Actually, they kind of look like they're on break, but they're building a road, it says. Coffee beans, spreading them out. Again, if you drink Starbucks coffee, these are the people that's harvesting the beans to make your Starbucks. Isn't that interesting? Lots of bananas, lots of fruits and things grown, lots of fishing happening. There is some oil drilling. You can see on the resource map up here. There's a bit of oil, but mostly farming and things like that. Here is a, what's it called? The no, not hydroelectric, that's water. Geothermal, that's it. Geothermal energy, thanks to that Great Rift Valley, all that moving and shaking creates energy. And also solar energy being implemented, helping the environment. This guy's helping it too. He's making some cool shoes out of these tires. They look very cozy. That's awesome. I would buy a pair. Here's their currency. They use the Kenyan shilling. And it says this road was built by the Chinese government because they have stake in their industries and they want to make sure products get to and from the interior safely. This cell phone you can see has some messages from M-Pesa, which is a Kenyan money transfer app in a way. It's very, very popular. Kind of like Cash App. Some absolutely gorgeous faces here. Look at these beautiful smiles. So sweet. Please don't feed the animals. In English and Swahili. What are these? Like some kind of squirrel or meerkat or something. Chilling out saying, please feed us. But don't do that. A traditional house here. Here's Simba, which this is here because Simba is a Swahili word for lion. And Hakuna Matata is Swahili also. The population map, you can see pretty much everyone lives down here. Not so much up here. And this is Kibera. It is a huge slum city. It has been there for over 100 years now. No running water, no electricity. And yeah, it's kind of an issue, but people have been there since for a long time. An ethnic group map. So you can see this is all Somali people. But lots and lots of different groups all throughout Kenya. Doing the jumping dance. Very, very iconic in this part of the world. And they're having their coming of age ceremony. They're all decked out. They're getting some bags of food to Somali refugees. And they're working hard in school. Let's see if we can see what they're learning about. What's that say? You can read? Looks like they're learning uppercase and lowercase. A goat. Having a moment of prayer there at church. They've sacrificed a cow and they're saying, great job, let's get to work, I guess, doing what's needed. These people are in a sacred town called a Kaya, which were villages that their ancestors had built that they had abandoned by the 1940s. It's along the coastal region up here. And they come back to these villages to worship their ancestors. I'm praying at the mosque, and over here's a very famous mosque, the Jamia Mosque. It's really pretty. Nice bright, bright white. And, oh, I forgot to mention. Did I mention it? I forget. The railroad was mainly built by, I didn't mention it, by Indians that came over from India. So many of those Indians stayed. There is a population of Indian people in Kenya, and they're celebrating a Hindu festival. Doesn't say what, but they're having a great time. Look at this mask. That's fantastic. Look at all the details on it. It's so cool. This is a Maasai person. And another Maasai person wearing absolutely gorgeous Maasai jewelry. I think it's so beautiful. And they're doing a traditional dance there. We're going to talk about these cloths in a minute on another page. Playing a traditional instrument called an obokano. And not so traditional instrument, but they're playing benga music, very popular music in that corner of the world. Here is Jua Kali. I'm not sure, but he's a rapper. He's about as sweaty as I am right now. And this is a famous novelist. His name's Ngugi wa Thiong'o. I already filmed tomorrow's video. I absolutely butchered his name. I didn't feel like going back and fixing it though, so that is how you say his name. Lupita. Oh my gosh, one of my favorite actresses, Lupita Nyong'o. She was actually born in Mexico, but she is Kenyan. And this is Julie Gichuru, who is a TV journalist, playing some football. But as you can see, they don't have a ball, so they tied together a bunch of garbage bags, and they're having a blast. This is Dennis Kimeto, a famous marathon runner. He's broken some world records, herding their cattle, just like they've been doing for millions of years, honestly. It's a long, long time. This is in Malindi. Some beautiful faces, and you can see Mom also has a beautiful face, hence so do the kids, except this one looks like a sleepy face. Playing some, well, in America we call it mancala. It is one of my favorite board games. It is so much fun. But apparently it's called mbao in Kenya. It looks like they have more holes too. Yeah, that looks like a lot more holes than a mancala board. This looks like these people are studying to be doctors, and they're doing a case study on this poor boy. He looks a little tired too. Some traditional mud houses here. And apparently traffic is an issue around Nairobi. Totally get that. Where I live, it's also an issue. Some very happy looking friends here. Wonderful smiles everyone has in Kenya. Here's this cloth. It is called konga. And all the different symbols and shapes have different meanings. Look how precisely laid out the vegetables are. Perfectly laid out. And ugali is the staple food. It's basically like cornmeal mushed together to make a salad. You can eat it, dip your fishy in it, scoop it, all those things. Very patriotic parade happening here. And funerals are a big deal in Kenya. It's a huge kind of affair. Everyone comes out and eats and all those things. Like, you could say we do that in other cultures, but like, imagine what we would do in the West times 10. Like, everyone comes out. And that's the end of our book. I do want to show you, just in case you're like still wondering about where Kenya is. It is right there in Africa. So that's going to be it for tonight. Like I said, I'll have another video for you tomorrow about Kenya. It'll be soft spoken. So no more whispers tonight. And it'll be the last video of Elephant Week. So don't miss out. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you found this video relaxing and educational. And I hope that you have a very good night. Good night. Good night. Good night.